Hello, and welcome to Krista Does Numbers on IQ Podcast with Attorney King Studios. I am Krista, your host. This is my co-host, Brett Davis.
Hello, everybody, and God bless everyone.
Yes, absolutely. And our guest today, Daniel Martinez.
Hello.
All right, today we are going to talk about budgeting, but before we get into that, I'm actually also going to bring update as of March 28th on what's going on in the world and for tax relief packages and or stimulus packages and relief efforts in the United States. The IRS has issued some more stuff, lots of stuff going on. So just to kind of educate some people, you know, what's interesting is when the IRS, they extended the income tax deadline, the payment of the tax liability, but they didn't extend the tax return deadline, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, what is wrong with these people? But they finally did that.
Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, so April 15th is a big deadline, obviously, for individual taxpayers and corporate businesses, C corporations and trusts as well. And there's a couple others. But so April 15th, right, is when the tax returns are due and the tax liabilities are due as well. You can always extend the return, but the tax liability you're not supposed to extend at all. Like otherwise you end up paying interest and penalties. But so initially they had extended the tax liability without interest and penalties for late payment and into July 15th. But they didn't include the income tax return itself. So this time they finally included the income tax return. So the income tax return is now due July 15th. You can still extend beyond July 15th. You just then have to file the appropriate forms. And then on March 25th, the Senate unanimously, thank you, passed.
If you're Krista by numbers, I'm Brett with words.
Yes, I know. That's exactly it. Thank you, sir. They passed a stimulus and relief effort package for individuals and businesses, beyond what's kind of what they had already done. So what's going to happen is each eligible individual can potentially receive up to $1,200. Obviously, I say potentially because there's some income thresholds and it's, there's stipulations. There always is. I mean, hello, this is the government. And then also $500 for each qualifying child. So keep in mind, it's a qualifying child. So basically, like in my case, I have a daughter, even though she's a dependent, she is 17 years old. So she is not a qualifying child, which makes me sad.
Of course it does.
Like I could use that extra $500 right now.
Sure.
So as I mentioned, there's, income thresholds and, based on the filing status of your tax return. And they are going to use tax returns that are already filed in 2019. So if you haven't filed your 2019 return, don't stress about it. Then they're just going to use your 2018 return to determine that amount of money that you'll get. There also is a temporary waiver of RMDs. That is the required minimum distribution on like pensions and IRAs and stuff. And that was for 2020. So and then the business relief package, right? Which I thought was kind of cute. They called it Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. So it's the acronym is CARES. I thought, oh, how sweet. It's kind of a nice little touch to that. But
I have a question.
Sure.
And Daniel had brought it up earlier, but I didn't hear an answer. Is there a way you can use your daughter's or son's college as a write-off in any way to get any funds back, or is that completely something different?
Well, you mean for tuition?
Yeah.
Well, there's already an adjustment on the tax return itself for that.
Okay.
And, it's a calculation that is done, and there's like a couple of, stipulations that you have to, qualify under, and, there's all sorts of stuff. So there already is that out there. So they didn't necessarily add anything to that. So yeah,
everybody's afraid right now. For different areas of their lives.
Yeah, definitely. But no, there wasn't anything specifically added into that. It already does can be deducted on the used an adjustment on the tax return, the 1040 tax return. So so the CARES Act, right? So you have employers. This is obviously for businesses. employee retention credit for employers, delay of payment of employer payroll taxes, temporary repeal of the taxable income limitation for net operating losses. Now, some of you may know that the Tax Cut and Jobs Act actually repealed the net operating losses. You can usually carry back for a few years, backwards. And so if you had income in the previous year, well, it stopped that. As of 2018, you couldn't do that anymore. So now you get to go back, and this is retroactive to 2018. So if you had a loss 2018, you had income in 2017, you now go back, do that NOL carryback, amend your 2017 tax return, and get that tax liability back. So I was super excited about that one, because that was one of those changes that really frustrated me. And then the bonus depreciation technical correction for qualified improvement property, which, I mean, if you're a business, then that could also be very beneficial for you. So the IRS suspends, and then there's a bunch of other ones that I'm not going to get into. But I'm actually going to be providing, I have a website, KristaDoesNumbers.com. I mean, duh, right?
So that really is a real website.
Yeah.
Krista Does Numbers.
KristaDoesNumbers.com. That's right. Yes, sir.
Is that logo that we were looking at yesterday the official logo?
The one where it looks like I'm on a pole? Yeah.
Daniel actually said it looked, what did you say it looked like?
It looked like the little logo for Little Darlings.
So you have to go to the website and check it out, just so you know what we're laughing about. But hey, that's okay. So there'll be some more information on there, and obviously, with some links, hopefully, that is in the works. But that's going to be up and provided to all of you for your reading, because I know you have so much time right now to read, and I'm sure that taxes and accounting interests everyone, just like me. But so the IRS suspends compliance programs, eases payment guidelines, right? And this will start April 1st, 2020, and this is not like an April Fool's joke. So just, yes, it really truly does start April 1st, and it will go through at least July 15th of 2020. So like if you had an installment agreement, if you have an existing installment agreement, or if you were going to start a new installment agreement, those have actually been suspended. So they will cease taking out money. They will just stop that. And yes, the interest will accrue on it, but you don't have to make the payment. And they're just going to stop doing that. You don't need to contact anyone for that. They're just going to do it on their own. And there's no penalties associated with that. So, and then offers and compromise, and then some other suspensions. And then there's also the IRS extended the Form 8966, which is the FATCA, is for financial reporting purposes, which is different than another type of foreign financial reporting. Sorry. And then, of course, each state will have their own individual stuff. And since I am in California, and by the way, that's right, my disclaimer, I am a California certified CPA. Yes, I am a CPA, but I'm not your CPA. So please contact your trusted tax or accounting advisor for additional information. All right, done. So mortgage relief for Californians. So the governor Newsom did announce a 90-day mortgage relief that for Californians impacted by COVID-19. Now, there's some specific banks that were mentioned: Wells Fargo, U.S. Bank, Citigroup, and J.P. Morgan Chase. They've all agreed for a 90-day grace period for payments. There's possibly some other, like 200 or so banks that have also committed to forbearance. But Daniel, can you talk a little bit more about that for me, please?
Yes. So they're giving a 90-day waiver or a help for 90 days. But you still have to pay the interest on it.
Right.
And so all you're doing is kind of deferring it and paying it on another day. Which I know it's help, but at the same time that could push you back behind the 8 ball.
Right.
And so if you have the money, I would still try to make your payments.
Okay. And
then for 90 days, if you still need help, you just reach out to your bank and they'll still try to assist you with that.
Okay.
I'm just trying to figure out, that's great that they're doing that, but deferred, it gives you a little breathing room, but on the end, you still have to pay that back. And what happens if people don't have the money for whatever the reason is, and it just keeps getting put back and put back and put back?
Yeah, that's probably one of my biggest fears as a
right?
homeowner.
Am I right, though?
Exactly.
So, you would think that they would come up with something a little bit more creative or a little bit more forgiving, I guess?
Yeah, because when I first saw it, it said a waiver. So I think usually a waiver is like, okay, you don't have to pay it. It's different from deferring it, but it's really just a deferral.
Well, is it more like you defer, like it's kind of almost extending it for 3 months, so or 90 days, right? So that you pick it back up on the 90th day or whatever, and then, say your last payment was supposed to be, in March 2025, but now it's in June of 2025 is now your last payment. Is that kind of how that works, or?
But you're still on the hook. So even
Right.
though you're not making the payments, you still have to pay the interest.
Right, I understand
And
that. Okay.
and you're still locked into whatever your terms are. So when the 90 days is up, you still have to pay the other stuff back too, and this payment.
Oh, I see. So just
they're probably gonna work with you with some kind of payment plan.
Okay. Yeah. So definitely, obviously talk to your bank, but understand, but just make sure you get all of the
Just
the
doesn't
little
go away.
Yeah, just the small print, right?
Mhm.
As they usually people like to say. So I'd like to get into budgeting, because I'm sure one of the interesting things that quite a few people have come to me with, friends, family members, clients. It's just like, Krista, this has really made me understand just how I've been wasting my money.
Definitely.
And I'm like, yeah, because I mean, unfortunately, it's so many Americans, they just live paycheck to paycheck. I mean, you hear that all the time. You're tired of living paycheck to paycheck. But so this is like, and then actually it reminds me of another commercial. I know it was a car commercial. I just don't remember which one it was. But, in real life, there is no reset button. And it's like almost like we have a reset button right now, in a way, in a sense. I mean, yeah, things, life still goes on in a lot of ways, but this is like, it's almost like a reset button for you to really, really kind of contemplate and think about where you're at and where you want to go. So I want to talk about budgeting, not just for businesses, but also for individuals, because I think we can all benefit from it. And so, first of all, why is budgeting so important? One thing I heard one time a few years ago was, if you don't tell your money where to go, it's going to tell you where it went. And that was so true, because, a lot of times at the end of the day, like, I'd be like, oh my God, like, where'd all my money go? Like, why don't I have all this, like, hundreds of dollars still left in my bank? And then I go look through it all. I was like, wow, and it's so, yeah, it literally just finally eventually just told me where it went, rather than me telling it where to go. And, and just one thing in looking at, being a business owner, depending on what type of business you're in, there's obviously, you can always be creative, first of all, with some solutions as far as what you can do. One thing is definitely look at is, how can I add value to my client, customer, or even employer, if you're an employee. And then what is your client or your customer or your employer, what do they need right now? Or what are they going to need in the future? And so sometimes just find creative solutions. Like, there's alcohol companies that are now making hand sanitizer. There's companies out there that, with cotton, that were made stuff with cotton products, that are now making face masks. And then you were telling me about the Dyson vacuum cleaner, Brett.
Got a call from the Prime Minister, Dyson did, and they asked him to get to work on, what did they tell you?
Ventilators.
Ventilators.
Yeah, you said
they had never made ventilators, and within 10 days they had a prototype and it was operating and ready to go.
It's amazing. That's quick. That's really quick.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is amazing.
I mean, everybody has specialties, but that's just beyond. That's beyond the scope. I mean, we're going to be seeing more of that, and it'd be great to have one of these businesses that have adapted to the times, whether it's somebody that makes clothing that's doing masks, or somebody like a Dyson that's adapted to doing things. It would be great to have on your show one of those individuals and interview them, I think.
Yeah, that's definitely that'd be great. Definitely. So when you're budgeting, obviously you need to determine your necessary expenses. And I think right now, what we need to put at the top is our savings or investment. Like, how much do we want to save or invest? Not like how much can we, but how much should we? And, one of the things was always, 10%, you should always put 10% away.
Is this for a business or for personal?
You know what? For both.
Okay.
Right?
So for both.
Yeah.
Business and personal.
Because if you have a business, you need to put a money away for
rainy day.
Right. Rainy day.
And there's a lot of rainy days.
Right now that every day's been a rainy day.
Sure.
And then, of course, for personal, because if you are an employee and you